Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. It may be afternoon. And we appreciate you joining our webinar today. So our webinar is on Missouri 4-H Youth Futures College Within Reach. Okay, so the one thing that I think is very important for people to understand about Youth Futures is that it's not a program that somebody just, all of a sudden decided to put together. It was a program that actually grew out of a need. The youth were already in 4-H. They were already, participants. And the need just was a different type of need than perhaps some of our other 4-H programs. The youth that we were working with, and the program actually started in 2002, these were youth that were living in urban areas. And actually the urban areas were the St. Louis area on one side of the state of Missouri and the Kansas City area on the other side of the state of Missouri. And so there was an issue that, the youth were coming to our programming, but the real need was that they needed help to learn how to navigate the system so that they could go to college, and also just to understand that if they wanted to go, they really could. These were youth who didn't feel that they could go, that they, didn't meet the criteria. School counselors, people at home were not encouraging them to go. And so that's how the Youth Futures program actually started, with trying to address that need. So at that time, we didn't have a name for the program. The other issue that we were having was that when these youth would go to other programs, other 4-H programs, whether they be state or national programs, they were becoming frustrated because they were not seeing other youth that look like them. And so it was decided that we would bring the youth together from both sides of the state and have a conference so that they could see other youth that look like them and understand that, yes, there are other 4-Hers that do look like you and have the same needs that you have. And so the conference started, and that was kind of the start of Youth Futures. And Mark, you can go to the next slide, please. And so this is just a map of, so you can see, that St. Louis and Kansas City are not necessarily close together. St. Louis is on the east side of the state, and then Kansas City is on the west side of the state. Columbia, which is not on this map, is just a little bit northwest of Jefferson City, which is the capital. And that's also important because Youth Futures is a collaboration between the University of Missouri and Lincoln University. And so the two institutions came together and decided, to help implement this program. So our programming, our Youth Futures programming, and it's not just with University of Missouri Extension youth, 4-H youth, but also Lincoln University youth as well. And we have sites all around the state of Missouri. We have them in Kansas City. We have them in St. Louis. We have them in Jefferson County. We have them in the Boot Heel, which is down in the south, the little Boot Heel area where you can see it. It's just not even down there. And in between every place else. So we actually have what we would consider to be about 15 sites around the state of Missouri. And some of my colleagues that actually have sites are on this webinar as well. And you will have an opportunity, if you'd like to ask questions to them later about their sites and how they look and what they do. Mark, you can go to the next one, please. So the big question people usually ask is, how are our sites funded and how are they sustained? So we actually have sites that are funded in various ways. All of our sites are not funded in the same way. So we have some sites that are under grants. Two of those sites are Jefferson County site, which Melissa and Christine will talk to you about a little bit, in just a little bit, are funded under the CYFAR grant, the Children, Youth, and Families at Risk grant. And also we have a grant in Ferguson, Missouri, which Cornita runs, and she will tell you about that site as well. Those are funded under that grant, which over the course of about 5 years, it's a 5-year grant, is probably about $650,000. And this grant is funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the National Institute for Food and Agriculture, and USDA. So, so this is a huge grant that spans over the course of 5 years, and we are in our 2nd year at this time. We also have our Columbia, our Boone County site, which is under the National Mentoring Grant, the National 4-H Mentoring Grant. And so some of you may have grants under National 4-H program, because if you have Tech Wizard sites or 4-H Life, those are also under this grant. So this is our 1st year having Youth Futures as a part of a grant. And actually, it's a pilot this year, and then next year it will be open to other states. So we are very happy to welcome Alabama, Illinois, and Kansas as part of our Youth Futures program, and that's through that 4-H National Mentoring Program grant. We also have sites that don't receive grants or perhaps don't have that extra funding that some of our sites have, and so, but they're still able to sustain. Sometimes it's done through partnerships with other organizations or schools. The one nice thing about the Youth Futures program is that it doesn't take an astronomical amount of money to run the program, and so usually even if you don't have grants, you can still have these programs. In fact, it's just been within the past few years that we've gotten grant money for Youth Futures, and so we had sites up and running without grant money. Now we have been able to receive funding from the university, which has helped us. We've received money from the Vice Provost for Extension. We've received money from the Deputy Chancellor. And so those have from donors of other organizations that may have donated money as well. And so so those sites have been able to sustain themselves. Next slide, Mark, please. So why Youth Futures? Why is Youth Futures a program that is important for our youth? Well, I think, in addition to the fact that, the job market projection, is predicting that, most jobs in the next few years are going to require some type of college education. It's also important that youth who think that they can't go to college, and it's amazing how many think that they really can't go, perhaps because, their grades are not good enough. They don't have counselors that are encouraging them to go. They may come from homes where nobody's ever been to college, and so nobody's encouraging them to go to college. So that's why this program is so important, because it's important for us to help these youth understand that if they really want to go, they can go. And sometimes all it takes is for somebody to help them to navigate through the process. If you've ever filled out FAFSA forms, how grueling that can be. And so just think about, how intimidating it is for someone who's never seen those types of forms, or who is not comfortable divulging their private information, into a system that they know is a government system. And so, those are the types of things that we do. Is we help the youth, we help the families, we help parents understand the process and why it's important and how it can, help their child to become, more successful. And so it's a program that, yes, is for youth, but it's also, for parents, it's for families. So we also understand that competition for college admissions, is a tough process. And so, we help them through this process. We teach them about FAFSA. It's amazing how many, kids we, speak to that are, seniors in high school. And when you start talking to them about FAFSA, they've never heard of it. And so, and again, it's a situation where perhaps the high school counselor, who is extremely overwhelmed, hasn't had the opportunity to speak with this youth. In addition to just being a part of Youth Futures, which is a 4-H program, they're a part of one of the largest or the largest youth organization in the country. And so there are a lot of benefits there. And we also know that 4-H helps young people excel, beyond their peers. And so we really want them to take full advantage of being in our Youth Futures program. Next slide, please. So we have a curriculum with Youth Futures, and I was going to pull that up, but I don't know that I can since I'm no longer connected. But what you do see in front of you is the table of content from the curriculum. So we developed a curriculum, and it's a web-based curriculum, and it's only available to those that are, enrolled in our Youth Futures program. And so we don't sell our curriculum outside of enrollment in Youth Futures. And if anybody, wants me to send them just a sample of the curriculum, I can do that. And at the end of the PowerPoint, you will see my email information. Next slide, please. So in addition to just our regular Youth Futures curriculum, which is not the only piece of curriculum that we expect people to use in our program, because you may find other, pieces of curriculum that are good as well, and you may want to use those. And we encourage people to use, whatever meets the needs of those that they are working with. But pretty much everything you need will be in that Youth Futures curriculum. But as part of our Youth Futures program, part of it is also career and workforce readiness. And so we have chosen as our youth and our career and workforce readiness piece, tackling the tough skills for teens. And this actually doesn't have to be a separate part of our program. It can be embedded into just the regular daily or weekly programming that you're doing with our Youth Futures program. And so again, you would choose how you'd want to do it. Now, this is a piece of curriculum that has to be purchased. And you can just go to the website and you can order from the website. It's about, if you're in the state of Missouri, it will cost about $100. If you are outside of the state of Missouri, it's actually cheaper, and it will cost more, probably around $90 or so, just a little bit more than that. Other pieces of curriculum that I would also recommend is National 4-H has a curriculum called Build Your Future, which is also good. It's a journal, and then there's the Leaders book. Those are good pieces of curriculum as well. So one of the things I failed to mention earlier is that Youth Futures is a program that can either begin in middle school or high school. So the curriculum that we've developed is a high school curriculum. It has a few middle school pieces in it, but it's predominantly for high school youth. The Build Your Future books, actually, I think are pretty good books to use for middle school. And the tackling the tough skills for teens can be used with both middle school and high school. And so the other thing that the Youth Futures curriculum does is we have a timeline in there. And so depending on what age group you're working with, you would just follow the timeline, and the curriculum goes right along with the timeline, and there are handouts in there. And so everything is very easy to use. We tried to make it so that it would be, easy to navigate, that anybody could use. And so you just kind of, see where you are in your calendar and what needs to be done, what the youth need to know moving forward from where they are. And then you can just start there and keep moving. Next slide, please. So in addition to our year-round programming, because Youth Futures is a program that is year-round, and depending on the site, it could be a daily program, it could be a weekly program, it could be twice a month, it might be once a month, but it should be year-round. We also have an annual Youth Futures conference that we host every summer. It's usually about the third week in July, and it's held on Mizzou's campus, which is in Columbia, Missouri. And grant sites, we ask them to, take some grant money and set that aside for their youth to attend. But sites that are not grant funded, we don't charge them to attend. The goal is to get the kids on campus, for 4 days. They stay in the dorms. They attend workshops. They do all types of different activities. Their workshops consist of workshops that deal with science, because we really are trying to get them to think about, careers in STEM. We do mock interviews with them. As part of the application process, they have to write an essay, and the essay is kind of their ticket to come. And those essays go to interviewers who will read their essays, ask questions, and it's just kind of a mock interview to get them used to going through the interview process, whether it's for a job or whether it's for admissions into college. And so that's part of our conference. We do a program called Reality Check, which is where we give them an identity and they have to figure out how to navigate. They get an identity that tells them, what type of education level they have, how much they're making, whether or not they even have a job. They may have children, they may be married, they may not be married, and so then they have to figure out, how they're going to survive and hopefully thrive, with the identity that they've been given. For a lot of our youth, it really opens their eyes, because they don't think about, and probably even more so don't know, all of the ins and outs of just trying to be an adult, so all of a sudden when they have to, find daycare and pay for that and figure out taxes and everything else, it's quite challenging for them. Other activities that we usually have may include presentations. We put the kids in groups, and then, there's a presentation that they have to do for the conference, usually at the end of the conference. We have a banquet, we have a dance, we, go swimming. So there are a lot of fun activities as well, but it's a good opportunity to bring the kids together, to give them the experience of actually being on a college campus and staying there and having to be responsible for themselves. And for most of them, this is their first time ever having an experience like this. Other opportunities that we have for our youth also include, we do a Rising Seniors Weekend, which is the weekend that leads directly into the conference. And our rising seniors will have some workshops that attend workshops that perhaps the other youth will not attend. For example, we do a pretty extensive FAFSA workshop with them so that they know how to fill out the FAFSA information and understand why it's so important. You know, we talk about grants and scholarships and all of those types of things. So our rising seniors are our youth that are in the 11th grade going into the 12th grade year in the fall. We also take them to Lincoln University, and Gus, who will speak with you in just a couple of minutes about his site, gives them a tour because Gus attended Lincoln and he does a wonderful tour with them. And the purpose of it is not only because we partner with Lincoln, but also because it's important for youth to understand that there are various types of colleges and universities, and they have to determine which is the best fit for them. So that way they get an experience being at two different institutions. We also do a transitioning seniors conference. So depending on how many youth we actually have determines whether or not we have that on a yearly basis. And the transitioning seniors conference is where we bring together our youth that have graduated from high school in May and will be going to college in the fall. And so they've already selected their colleges and universities. And it's just kind of a way to hold their hand a little bit and make sure that they still get there, because a lot of our youth, you know, will apply, get accepted, accept, and then don't go to school, you know, for various reasons. A lot of them, you know, just get cold feet. They don't think that there will be other kids there like them, or others that have had this, that come from the same types of situations that they come from. You know, it's new, it's a challenge. And if you're coming from a home where perhaps you're not getting the type of support that you need, or, you know, people don't know how to support you, then it can be that much more difficult. And so this is just an opportunity to kind of hit some of those last minute details, you know, making sure that they know what to take to school. You know, I've had, you know, heard kids say, well, you know, you have to take your own linen or towels. You know, they don't always understand it's not a hotel that you're staying in. And so, yes, you have to take your own linen and your own towels and your own everything. You know, how to deal with roommates, you know, especially if you get a roommate that is just not like you, or you have a hard time getting along with, you know, how do you deal with that? And so just some of those last minute ins and outs of going to school is what are addressed at the Transitioning Seniors Conference. Next slide, Mark. So this video is a video that I'd like you to see of, and this was taken several years ago at one of our Youth Futures conferences, but it just kind of gives you an idea of, you know, the youth that we're working with, and some of the activities that they actually participate in at the conference. And this is a STEM activity that they're participating in with Dr. Bob Horton from Ohio State University, who came in to work with us that year.
Well, I'm clicking play, and I'm getting a media not found. I suspect what happened, Donna, is that the copy that you sent me is not linked to maybe whatever video you had locally, so I don't think we'll be able to play it.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you guys won't be able to see it, but you can go to the 4-H website on the University of Missouri Extension web, and the video is on there.
And I'll tell you what we'll do too, Don, is after we're done, we'll find links for all these, and we'll put them on the Learn event at learn.extension.org, so folks will be able to access them there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's go to the next slide. And these are just some photos that were taken during one of the conferences that we've had. And we do the conference every year, so, and we're always taking pictures of the kids. And on these slides, or these pictures, are STEM activities, and then we had a dodgeball tournament, and so that's what the other one is. Next slide, please. And these are just some more conference slides. One of the things I would like to point out is that the picture on the left, there are 3 young people in that picture, and the young lady in the middle is actually one of our first Youth Futures participants. She went through the Youth Futures program, got her bachelor's degree from Mizzou, and then got her master's degree from Mizzou, and is now getting ready to graduate and she is getting her law degree. So, you know, so she is just a fine example of the success that we have in our Youth Futures program. The other 2 in that picture are now in college. And so our success rate is pretty high for graduation, as far as college graduation is concerned. And we do an annual report every year that has our success rate, and I was going to bring that up for you to see, but since I can't click in, I'm sorry I can't share that with you. But that's something else that I would be happy to share if anybody wants me to email that to them. Next slide, please, Mark. So it's important that, you know, as Youth Futures participants, that we expect our youth to not only be a part of the Youth Futures program, but also to participate in other 4-H events. So, you know, we have our statewide events, we have national events, we have, you know, our local events. And so we want them to not just be a part of the Youth Futures program, but also to be a part of, you know, other 4-H programming as well. Next slide, please. And the fun is because we want our kids to, you know, make sure that in the midst of all of this, although, you know, this is very important, this process that they're going through in Youth Futures, fun is also important. So these 2 pictures are pictures of some of our youth that went on a college tour last year. A lot of our Youth Future sites put college tours together just to get them out of the state, out of the area. A lot of the youth that we work with have never left, you know, their neighborhoods or, you know, their cities. And so it's important, again, for them to not only, you know, be a part of the 4-H Youth Futures program in their area, but also to really get out and see what's out in the world, you know, to see what other areas look like, to see what their options are. So last year, and Melissa and Gus and Christine and Cornita, if you guys want to talk about the college tour last year, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, it was great. We had some local funding that was able to help us support our kids to go to that. And we went to Tennessee and we visited 4 different universities, from Tennessee State, University of Tennessee, Lane University, and Vanderbilt. So they really got to see a variety of climates and campuses. And even though the students might not go to Tennessee, they did learn a lot of things and said things like, now they'll pay attention to the different kinds of climates that different campuses have, and they know that that out-of-school states are possible for them. They found out about how Tennessee State has a lower rate for students who graduate from a high school within 250 miles. So being out of state isn't necessarily a big price difference. So yeah, it was a great experience. The kids got to meet each other and get to experience things together, and it was a great trip. Thanks, Donna.
Oh, you're welcome. I think one of the things that I heard on the trip, because I was on that trip with them, was that I heard kids almost, they were shocked when they realized that they really can go to college, because when the various school talked about, the GPAs, and that I think they really did not believe that they could go until they heard these various admissions, offices talking about the criteria to get in. And I heard people, some of the kids saying, oh, wow, I could go to school here. And I think until they really heard that, they didn't believe that they could go. And so then it became real to them. Next slide, please. So how does the Youth Future site look? So we have Melissa, Christine, and Cornita, and Gus all have Youth Future sites. And so I'm going to ask them to just kind of talk a little bit about their sites, and because all sites are different. So some of these are grant sites and some of these are not. And so, but I'm going to let them tell you what they do and how they run their sites.
Well, I will start. I have the site that's not funded through grants. I have several different Youth Future sites. I have one at, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 at high schools, and one at a middle school, and I'm also, well, actually 2, 3 at high schools, and one at a middle school, and I'm starting a new one at another middle school. And one club is a variation of middle school and high school. It's just at a community center. I run my sites different because I meet with my students at least once a week, and we go over various different curriculums, and we focus. Each one of them are focused differently. For instance, I have one at a high school where we meet twice a week, and one of the meetings is focused on leadership, college prep, and community service, where the second day is focused strictly on club business. So it's actually having club meetings and meeting in club settings. One of our clubs is focused on conflict resolution and leadership, as far as in the classroom and in the community. So I run mine a little different because I see my students at least once a week, and we do various different community services outside of that as well.
Thank you, Gus.
I can go next. So my site is different in the sense that it's a more of a community site, but it's also run as a partnership with a local organization in Ferguson. My group itself, we have a combination of middle schoolers and high schoolers. We just opened it up to middle schoolers this year, and it's actually going pretty well because it gives the high schoolers the opportunity to develop some leadership skills that they wouldn't necessarily have otherwise, because it puts them into that big brother, big sister role, whether they want to be or not, because it forces them to be more responsible, think twice about some of the things that they're about to say or do. So I find that very beneficial. And then on the other end, it pushes the middle schoolers to want to know more, to want to do more. And so that's helped out. For instance, we just started at our, well, going more towards the running our site as a 4-H club, so to speak. So we just actually voted in our officers and things like that. And we went ahead and added in officers in training because, I allowed them to come up with their own ideas of, well, bylaws, so to speak, of how we run a club, how we organize it, what rules they want to have, so that, because I learned that it's more important for them to have input in it, because if I just give them rules, they're not necessarily going to listen. But it's a great kind of a melting pot. I have a group of youth from various schools in the St. Louis area, as far as Kirkwood in the county, and some are even coming from me from the city, such as Southside, such as Central Valley. So that's a good opportunity as well, because they're able to get to know other teens that they wouldn't necessarily interact with. But overall, it's a great learning opportunity for me, to be able to work with these teens in various age groups, various backgrounds. But then it's also a great opportunity for them to gain so much insight now, so that when they do go off into the real world, they've had different experiences that others in their schools or in their neighborhoods might not necessarily have had.
Thank you, Cornita. And then Melissa and Christine, they have sites in Jefferson County.
Right. I got started with Youth Futures a couple of years ago because there was a group of volunteers that were particularly interested in supporting youth with super high needs that the school social workers identified. And so those volunteers wanted to support those youth, and the school social workers recognized that a mentoring program was what they needed. And so Youth Futures sort of came up from the ground that way. And then we were really fortunate that we could, like I mentioned, get a local grant that was able to support like that college tour last year, as well as some other support to get it off the ground. And we were able to develop some partnerships with schools. And so first we tried to meet after school, but the students, they had so many responsibilities after school, or they didn't have rides, or they had jobs, or they had to care for their younger sisters and brothers. And so we were able to work it out that we could meet during the school day. And I'll let Christine talk about our specifics that we're at now.
So right now we are in 2 different schools, and we do meet with them during the day. One school, it's during their owl time, or their time that they have set aside, where the students can work on anything they have. If they have to do retest, or they meet with a band group or a theater group, they have a time, an hour during the day, where they can just reserve that to meet in different areas. So we meet with the students there, and we have different ages or different grades that come in. And so we work with them on different things that they need. As a group, we move through the activities and the curriculums that we have. But again, depending on what grade they're in, we'll adapt to what they need. And so then at our other school, it's unique, I think, because it's considered their alternative school, or a different option for the students that are really struggling with making it through high school. And so with those students, it's really neat. Last year we worked with the seniors. They were juniors last year. And so we have that group again this year as seniors. And so it's really unique to see them at least change over that year. And then the school enjoyed the program so much that they put together some freshmen, a freshman group to come through the school, and then also have us participate, or have them participate in the Youth Futures program. So it's really unique to see the different levels, the different dynamics that we reach with the students, because they come from different backgrounds, in every aspect. And so it's neat to meet with them, and we meet with them twice out of a month, each school. And so it's been unique to see, and good to see that the school is on board and very supportive of that, because that makes the program easier, especially as we do other college tours that are local, things that they can help the program with, which is important for Youth Futures as a whole, is, if you're with a school, can they provide the buses? Are they able to provide, like with us, we are in the classroom, so we already have the dynamics the tools that they can use, computers, things like that they can use within the school. And then we have other staff members there. So I think it's really, it's with our dynamics of our students, it helps that we can really get to them right at the school. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, all of you. So you can see that, you know, Youth Futures programming can look different according to the site, according to the needs. So we have school-based programs, we have out-of-school-based programs, site-based programs, or center-based. And we also have partnerships with, you know, other organizations. We've had partnerships with one of the Ys in Kansas City. We've had partnerships with Delta Sigma Theta in the St. Louis area. And so, you know, sometimes you'll find other organizations that either have the need for the type of programming that 4-H Youth Futures provides, or they may be doing something similar. And so it's very easy to, you know, just to partner together, and then the, you know, kids get the benefits. And we found that that has worked very well. Next slide, Mark, please. We had a video I wanted you to see of Cornita's site, but I don't know that it would come up on there. So what do you need to do to get started? So if you are interested in starting a Youth Futures program, you know, first, you know, you would need to talk to your program director and contact me, but we have what we call a replication package. And so this is pretty much what it would, the fees that would be involved would look like. And, you know, and that's just showing you a little bit of it, but that's where we would start right here. So it's not really difficult to have a 4-H Youth Futures program. I think the biggest piece is having the people, the manpower to implement the program. Volunteers can be trained to implement the program. You know, school personnel, if they prefer to do it and not have you come in, you know, it could be done that way. We found that it's probably most successful by having you know, 4-H employees implement the program and then work with other people. Next slide, please. And so this is just a picture of one of our Youth Futures conference participants. Every year we always take a group photo. This is not our past year's photo, but we would love to have you be in our photo. We would love to have you be a part of the Youth Futures program. And that website at the bottom is the website for Youth Futures on the University of Missouri Extension website. And so, you know, if you want to go directly there, that's where you can go. Next photo, next slide, please. This is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me. And I don't know if anybody has asked any questions or has questions. I can't see the chat, so.
Yeah, there are no questions at this time, but I would encourage our attendees, if you have any questions, please put those either in Q&A or in chat. And just while we're waiting for any questions, this might be a good time, just any other comments from any other the other panelists or anything you'd like to share. Just while we're waiting on any comments, I was thinking just on a personal note, I was a counselor at a program called Upward Bound, which is, I think other states have that. And this sounds similar, at least the college, the piece where they're staying on campus sounds similar to Upward Bound. And I can tell you that it's a life-changing experience for a young person to be able to go on a college campus, stay in a dorm, go to a class, and just sort of being on a college campus like that and spending time there. It really can be a huge experience for them.
And we're really excited that, you know, we're expanding the program. You know, it's been in just Missouri this is actually our 15th year. And so now to be able to have other states as a part of 4-H Youth Futures is very exciting to us. And so we're really looking forward to working with the other states, and hope that there will be states that will apply under the National 4-H Mentoring Program grant next fall that will also want to be a part of the Youth Futures program. And I think that in the next year or so too, the CYFAR grant will be opening again. So if there are other states that want to, even have Youth Futures under the CYFAR grant like we do, that's something that they could apply for as well. So there is money out there. So you just have to take the time to apply. And but those are two grants that have been very supportive of the 4-H Youth Futures program, and so we would certainly encourage you to apply through either one of those grants.
Tommy, got a quick question in chat. Tommy says, regarding implementing Youth Futures, what are the issues and solutions you have experimented with getting students to sites? And then in parentheses, it says travel-based.
Yeah, travel can always be an issue because a lot of the youth that we work with, maybe coming from homes where there is no transportation. There have been sites where sometimes, there's carpooling or somebody goes and picks them up. Some sites have had funds where they could give, bus passes. Usually the kids that want to be there, they find a way to get there, although it's not always easy. And we realize that, everybody doesn't have transportation. Everybody doesn't have vans at their sites where they can go and pick up youth. But usually if they need a ride, they will let you know. And so it's not uncommon for us to sometimes use our own personal vehicles to pick up, those youth that at least are consistent in coming to our programs.
I did it several different ways. I've done it in a way where we've had students show up at our locations. If we had like satellite locations or off-site locations, such as like Cornita's site, or wherever I picked up students and dropped them off at the center and then also took them home. Now I'm based solely in schools. So it helps a lot when I'm based in schools because I have so much access to the students. And there I don't have to rely on driving, picking up, or hoping that students are being dropped off. Now I have access to them after school, and then their parents pick them up after our program is over. So it's a lot better that way for me because the wear and tear of driving back and forth was really taking its toll on me. Also, when I have to agree with Donna, a lot of times when students have buy-in to a program, it means a lot to them. So they will show up to the location for that program. It's all about the buy-in to the program. And when students have that buy-in, their commitment to the program is a lot better. They put a lot more dedication into a program that they have buy-in to and ownership of.
Tommy followed up with a question, said, how does the programming adapt to summer months when most schools are closed?
Yeah, and that can be tough, especially if you have a school-based program. But usually what you have to do is find a location, and it could be the school. The school may let you, still use the school building, set up your meeting times, make sure that they know, make sure the parents are aware, and then you continue with your programming. So,
I'm sorry, Don.
Go ahead, Gus.
Oh, what I've done is that we have a location here in St. Louis City that we have 4 off-site activities to say, and it's located here on Delmar and Union. And in the summertime, I have a mini camp, and that mini camp will go on for like a week and a half, where we get ourselves ready and geared up and prepared for the main conference, which is the Youth Futures Conference in Jeff City. And after we do our mini camp, we also have planned outings and planned events throughout the summer those students are those ones that have buy-in. Those are the
Mhm.
ones that have dedication to the program. So you have those are the students who will show up for those events during the summer. So there's no pickup, there's no drop-off. There's parents now being committed to dropping their kids off and picking them up. So,
Mhm. And I think it does help, as Gus said, to have some, activities during the summer that, are fun activities, because it just keeps the kids engaged.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say, just thinking about that, it's probably easy to sort of lose some steam or lose some momentum
mhm.
if there's 2 or 3 months where you're not meeting at
Right,
all.
right. And during the year, if you kind of talk about that, and so that when the summer months approach, you know, the kids have already said, oh, we'd like to do this or do that. And so again, it's their voice saying that this is what they like to do. So they're more apt to show up, you know, if they have some input into what goes on during that summer planning as well. It's a good time to really let them tell you what they like to do, and then they'll probably show up. Yeah, the ones that really want to be there, they find a way to get there, even if it means that they call you and say, I'm having a hard time getting there. But if nothing else, it lets you know that they are committed and they're trying to be there.
Okay, we've just got a few minutes left. We'll take another 30 seconds or a minute and wait for any other questions that might come in. I'm wondering, are there any challenges? This may be a good one for Gus or others. Are there any challenges getting into schools or being able to use school space, public schools?
I've had in my last 2 years, I haven't had too many issues or challenges to get into the schools, because once I meet with a counselor and we go through the process of seeing what type of curriculum I'm going to bring and what type of activities I'm going to bring and how the program is going to affect the student body, they usually have really strong buy-in from those people. So I don't have too many issues going into different schools or going into programs. If a school wants me, they just let me know by sending me an email or giving me a phone call to set up a meeting. And then once I meet with them, the probability of us having a program in there is pretty much 100% so far. So,
yeah, the schools have been pretty welcoming. I think what we're offering is what they would like to have, and then to have somebody else who can come in and actually offer the program, I think takes a little bit of the stress off of them. I've had experiences where, I've gone into schools and, their staff is actually, wanted to teach the curriculum, wanted to implement the program. And so, sometimes the hardest part is depending on the school or the district. Some schools have to go through their Board of Education office, and it may take a little longer, to get it approved. But usually it's the building principal and the counselors and that make the decision, and it usually moves, fairly quickly. So we really haven't had too many problems getting into schools.
Yeah, I would think. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Here in Jefferson County, I don't know if we don't have as many, if they don't have as many partnerships normally, but it has been a little bit of developing relationships and helping people to understand. And in the beginning, we'd have a relationship with maybe just one school counselor or social worker. And then it's if that person's schedule wasn't the same the next year, or if there was a change in who worked there or something, I would wonder if that would have continued, because we do have such good relationships with those particular people. And I'm not always sure that others in the building have as much buy-in. So that's one of the things we're really hoping to continue to work on as we move forward, is that we do have other folks in the school that know about the program and what it's doing and how it works and that kind of thing, so that we can continue to have support from them.
Yeah, I was just going to make the statement. I would think schools would be glad to have you all there. You know, you're providing staff to some level to be able to run a program. You've also got funds and other things. So, yeah, I would think that schools would be glad to have you there.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so I think we'll wrap things up. Donna or anyone else, any closing thoughts?
I would just like to thank everyone who's on the call. Thank you to my co-presenters for taking time out to be on the webinar today. And I'm glad that your technology worked well, and that you were sharing all of your expertise. And again, if anybody needs more information, please contact me. My information is on the screen. And and if you need me to send you a copy of a sample curriculum, I can send you a sample as well, or our annual report, whatever it is that you would need to follow up from the webinar. If you're trying to talk somebody else into it, because I know sometimes people will call and they want to have the program, but they're trying to talk other colleagues into being a part of the program, or their program director, just let me know. I would be happy to be a part of those conversations.
Great. And we had small numbers on this live webinar, but again, we'll be recording this. We'll make it available on the Learn site, and we'll be sure to put the slideshow in the other event.
Okay, and thank you, Mark, for all of your help as well.
Sure, and listen, I think it's great work y'all are doing here, and I've got some ideas. I'll contact you after the webinar about about working with the Diversity and Inclusion Corps that eextension.org is working on. So.
Right. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks,
everybody.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
have a good afternoon, everybody.